like you said, he's got 3 rings, right? And just to clarify, none of those rings are with Toronto, right?
Is Fraser Minton going to have more points than Slavkovsky this year? Fraser Minton sucks at hockey. This guy might not even be an NHLer, so we got to settle down on that one.
Adelaide, no. Minus 160 on will they show her holding a drink in her hand.
They are 2 points behind the St. Louis Blues in the wild card, and they are.
Oh, the Blues are dog water. The Blues suck. The Blues are the worst of those 4 teams that I mentioned by a mile.
And
they're not a good hockey team.
Care, like have some set of balls, have some response, have some pride for what the hell goes on the ice. It's so absurd.
I'm looking forward to the parade, but that's going to be later in the year.
I'd rather have so money in that than have Arbor Soderblom. I would rather stack a bunch of garbage that I have in the corner of my room over here than have Arbor Soderblom in that. He's
April 30th, welcome back to Edgework presented by Pinnacle. I'm Zack Phillips, joined here on this Tuesday morning with a new crew, the Matts. We got Matt Alber, Matt Russell helping me here today, break down what went on last night with the 2 NHL games we saw, and then look ahead to the 4 on tonight's schedule. So we'll get into all of those, we'll break it all down, give out our best bets here, we'll answer questions from the chat if you guys have any. But before we do, I want to remind people that if you haven't already, you should be signed up at Pinnacle Sportsbook. Pinnacle is the world's sharpest sportsbook and is available to bettors in Ontario. You can find out what professional bettors have known for decades. Pinnacle is where the best bettors play. You must be 19 plus in Ontario. Please play responsibly, and remember, not available in the US. And as we go through the slate here today, when you look at all the different prices, Pinnacle will have the best number on a lot of those. Now, look into last night, our good friend Charles Saul, he was in the building there last night. Saw boots on the ground for the Panthers, was hoping to see some handshakes. He does, but looks like he enjoyed himself a nice little celebration post-game as he's hurting at work. So hopefully the Edgework crew here today can give us some winners and give you guys some winners in the chat. But let's start there in that Florida game. Pretty dominant win for the Panthers, aside from, maybe a little bit of a tic-tacky goalie interference call that we saw. Questionable, just kind of on the line. It's maybe not as tic-tacky as we would think, but it would be more the inconsistencies that we see. Matt Russell, I'm gonna have to do that here today. What do you make of
today?
What'd you make of that game last night?
Yeah, I was going to say for ease of use, because it's Tuesday, let's just call Alber Alex for the entire show.
Let's not do that.
What am I making of the game last night? It's funny, right? Like everybody's talking about the second one that got called off. I thought the first one that got reviewed and overturned, I thought was the more sort of offensive one. Because I know in the second intermission, the guys were like zaprudering the second one. And actually had a kind of an interesting take on, especially from Kelly Rudy, as a former goalie, you think he's going to, have the backs of the goaltenders. He's like, no, these guys got to fight. These guys got to fight through some contact too. And, Bobrovsky just like dropping his stick, like, oh, I've been shot. And kind of giving up on the play and getting bailed out by the referee was a little annoying. So, I mean, they mentioned, right, letter of the law that goal shouldn't count. I was right there with Cooper in wanting a further explanation beyond the, like in every sport, the ridiculous rules official that comes in to tell us, why a call is right pretty much every single time, even if it's probably not. As for the game is concerned, obviously the scoreboard looks a little rough, but Tampa 2.36 to 2.1 in even strength expected goals and 10-6 in high danger chances at even strength, right? So, I mean, that's a 2-1 game that has 2 goals called back. Like most of the series, they weren't necessarily the better team, but they probably deserved a better fate than a 4-1 series lost, right? I mean, obviously there was an overtime game in there as well. So, bigger picture, probably kind of the end here. Not 2 straight first round series losses for Tampa Bay. Probably the end of the Lightning as we know it. Obviously, question marks about Stamkos coming back. Maybe even a bigger issue for me. Vasilevsky just never kind of found his form this season after the hip surgery, I believe it was. Right, we talked about coming into the postseason. It's like, well, he's going to have to be better than in the regular season because he wasn't that much different than the backups that they would play, and that obviously has been situation in the past where if he wasn't playing, the Lightning were in big trouble, and now he's playing essentially, like a replacement level goaltender, and that was again the case in this series. Bobrovsky outplayed him, and Florida being just the better team. So yeah, Florida advancing was a little bit inevitable. I think they were the better team, but 4-1, and of course 6-1 last night. In both cases, I think a little bit misleading.
That Florida team looks very, very scary right now. I don't know. Watching them last night, it feels like if anybody's learned lessons from playoffs, it might be Florida, and it looks like they might be applying them. Alber, looking at that team, yourself cheering for a team in the East, if you're watching that on the other side, obviously you wouldn't have to go through them in the next round, given that if you would get there. But what do you make of how dominant Florida had been in the first round, their improvements, if any, from last season, and kind of their ability to go on and take this one far this season?
Yeah, I think he touched on a lot of it with the Vasilevsky stuff that we talked about on the series preview, right? Like, you kind of look at it, and with Tampa, you're used to going, okay, well, they have an edge in net. Like, they may not be the better team up front, but they'll have the edge in net. And that's just not the case here. Like you said, like, Vasilevsky just never really found it this year. And in order for them to kind of extend this series out longer than I do agree, they deserved a better fate than kind of losing in 5. The series was, for the most part, actually played pretty close. He was going to need to be the better goalie, and he just simply wasn't over the course of the series. So yeah, I don't really know where Tampa goes from here. It certainly seems like they're maybe headed on a bit of a downward trajectory at this point. As for Florida, now that they're healthy, they're a juggernaut. And it's like, I would not want to see them. Certainly, I'm not looking forward to the Rangers potentially seeing them if we were to get there. Just to be clear, I said if. But yeah, I don't know. That was always going to be a tough series, I think, for the Lightning. It was nice to kind of cash Florida series there, relatively sweat-free. But yeah, no, I certainly would not want to play them next.
All right, the other game that took place last night, we've got a tied series here. Vegas-Dallas 2-2. The Dallas Stars win last night 4-2, and it was a pretty fun game to watch there between those two teams. Russell, as for the entire Edgework crew, I think, the entire Edgework chat, there's been support for Dallas through the regular season. I honestly, I think it might have started in the preseason, into the regular season, into futures prices, conference prices, now into the playoffs here now. This has just been full-blown support by the Edgework crew for Dallas. We saw them go down in the series. Some concerns started to creep in. What's your level of comfort with what this Dallas team has done through the last couple of games, heading back to Dallas now?
Yeah, I mean, concerned to say the least, right? When you lose the first 2 games at home, it's like, yeah, I'm a little concerned. I haven't had a chance to talk with you guys about this series, other than, through chat, and just not wanting to be involved in watching it, because it's just like not any fun. It's not a fun series to watch when you're on this Dallas team that, again, last night, and not in as drastic a way as it was in game 3, but again, they're the better team at 5-on-5. And it's also a series that, we can say with a lot of these series, oh, this team is better 5-on-5, or this is a lot closer. I think, Alber just experienced a 4-game sweep where 5-on-5, Washington and New York weren't that far off, but it's immediately, anytime a penalty was taken, it was like Rangers are going to score a goal here, and Washington just isn't, right? Because Ovechkin's not going to, barely participate offensively in the series, right? Or try. So, you look at the Washington-New York series, and you're like, man, like, the high danger chances are like pretty equal, and like kind of weird for a 4-game sweep, especially one that I think we all thought the Rangers were going to have, a relatively easy time. And yeah, it's one thing because, there was a lot of penalties in that series. And so it's like, yeah, the more penalties there are, the more the power play can be, that difference maker that a team with a really good power play and a really good penalty kill and a really good goaltender would want to have. This series is between the two of the 5 least penalized teams in the league. And that has shown up in that, like, there's basically, 2 power plays each in these games, right? So the power play isn't going to be sort of that difference maker. And yet the Golden Knights, getting caved in here 5-on-5, won those first 2 games and almost, I say almost won game 3 because that game did go to overtime, but like they didn't generate anything in the third and quote unquote 4th period to sort of say that they almost scored or almost won. So again, last night, and in Vegas, right? There's, scary home ice advantage. That is Vegas. Oh, the fortress. Dallas was again the better team, and luckily again, took a 3-2 lead. You're sitting there, it's 2-2. You're like, God, this is going to happen again. We're going to have to sweat this thing out going to overtime, et cetera, et cetera. And even Dallas's goals, two of them on the, from the goal line, weren't exactly inspiring as far as like something that you can necessarily rely on. Though it seems like maybe they found kind of a quite literal angle to attack Logan Thompson, who's been, from a goals saved above expectation standpoint, the best goaltender in the playoffs so far. I think he's at like 7, +7 goals saved above expectation. Meanwhile, Ottinger is right around kind of league average. So just look at the goaltending, right? And a lot of these series, look at the goaltending. I referenced the Rangers and the Caps, right? Like, you're allowed to have a good goaltender. Shesterkin was, I think, +3 goals saved above expectation. Lindgren, for as good as he was down the stretch, was -3. Right, that's a 6. That right there, that's a 6-goal differential. That if you apply to the goal differential of that series, which I believe was Rangers +7, now you've got yourself an even series. It's the same thing with Dallas and Vegas, right? Where it's like there is a 7-goal differential that is entirely at the feet of goaltending, and it's not like it's this predictable thing where it's like, oh, Logan Thompson. Of course, Logan Thompson's been good. Like, no, this isn't Shesterkin, where like Shesterkin, you'd be like, yeah, of course Shesterkin's been good. And again, as good as Lindgren was down the stretch, you could say like, okay, I'm not that surprised that Lindgren wasn't great. So you're just sitting here going like, okay, like you almost just need more games to pile up. Unfortunately, as much as a 7-game series sort of feels like a good sample size, it kind of never is. And so at least with these last 2 games being on the road, Dallas has shown and been able to convert their better play into wins. Is this going to turn into, sorry, Alber, Rangers Devils from last season, where it was just, there's your 2 games, you get them, on the road, and now it's 4
At least
games
you have a
straight for
reason for
Dallas?
bringing it up. Rob did it just to make me miserable. So.
Yes. Well, I mean, and that's the thing, right? Like it equates to what the Rangers, did this season, and obviously it sort of might tie into last season. So, hopefully it's 2 more for Dallas here. They're a heavy favorite in game 5 back at home. Maybe not heavy enough, to be completely honest with you. We're talking about a 58-29 even strength, high danger chance. That's literally double, right? Based on some crude mathematics of multiplying 29 by 2, 58-29, they have doubled them in high danger chances through 4 games in this series. Like, that's ridiculous. And again, it's not like the power play, because there aren't that many opportunities for either team, which again, predictable given the fact that neither team has allowed that many power plays or taken that many penalties. The 5-on-5 should still keep going here for Dallas, right? Like, this is the stuff that's, of all the different things that you can handicap, goaltending, special teams, etc. Like, the 5-on-5 stuff is what we rely on to handicap this stuff. And there's going to be outliers. There's a ton of, I don't know what teams' records are of having less than 15 shots on goal this postseason, but like, they're doing pretty well in the few cases of that actually being the case. So, man, again, we talked about this before the series started. Like, I think the term mega hard got thrown around pretty aggressively. We're going to need Dallas. We're going to, I don't know who brought it up. I don't know who said it. I don't know who coined it. I'm not here to point fingers. But yeah, we're going to need Dallas here to finish this off. But, maybe it's the only one that goes 6. Maybe it's the only one who goes 7. But yeah, it's been stressful, and I don't really want to watch the games because they're annoying.
Edgework and mega hard seems to be going hand in hand here on the show. Yeah, it's trending at this point. Alber, as for that game last night, tying this series up, I mean, we're looking at basically what's been a road series here. Alex B said he didn't expect it to continue to be a road series all the way through, but is that kind of what we've got on our hands right now with these 3 final games? Like, what do you make of these 2 teams and their inability, or maybe extra ability, to play on the road, inability to play at home?
I mean, I think you can look at it that way, or you can look at it and say Dallas probably should be up 3-1 right now. I think you can even argue. I think you could argue they could probably have swept them, honestly. Like, game 3, not even close. Like, if Thompson doesn't just completely stand on his head, that's like a 6-1 game or something, right? Like, I think game 1 and 2, you probably should have seen a split out of that. I mean, I think this is why we're all so high on Dallas, though, right? It's like kind of what Russell was saying. Ottinger's been very mediocre. Thompson's been amazing. And Dallas has just completely outplayed them the entire time, and the series is tied. So it's like you're getting way worse goaltending, and you're still kind of like just caving this team in. So yeah, at this point, like, and I get it's easy to say, it's hard to kind of see how Vegas kind of works their way back in this, aside from Thompson just continuing to do this. But man, Dallas is just like this is kind of what we see in Dallas, and I think they've generated like 12 expected goals in the last 2 games. It's no, this series has been very one-sided, and for all of our sake, kind of hopefully this continues here.
All right, let's get. Oh,
sorry, Zach. Just one last thing on the Dallas Vegas thing, right? Because my thing was in watching, sort of not when the Canucks are getting sort of outplayed by the Predators, but literally all the other times when I'm frustrated that the team who's not, playing as well, even at even strength, is somehow winning. Then that's the point where I go, okay, what's happening like on the ice, right? Like the nitty gritty of like matchups and all that kind of thing that is creating, like, why is Vegas so good at converting their high danger chances, right? Like, why are they 4 for 29 while Dallas is 4 for 58? And you start watching, a little bit more closely, a little bit more intently, especially when, obviously Vegas is, in the offensive zone. And what Vegas wants to do, right, is they always kind of have that third player kind of like lurking on the backside. And there's always kind of, how they score goals is there's always kind of like a random centering pass. And, a guy is there to just bang it home, right? And that's kind of like the most high danger chances, right? Where the goaltender's, looking one way and has to come across. And oftentimes there's a significant portion of the net open, right? And what I noticed with Dallas is like Dallas is almost letting the guy, it's like in basketball, if the point guard can't shoot, right? You're playing off the point guard and playing the pass. Dallas is doing a really good job defensively of playing the pass and almost kind of like not staring at the puck and keeping their eye open for the backdoor opportunities, right? And that is limiting the high danger chances in the offensive zone, obviously, for Vegas. And so watching that next game, like how one Vegas player starts doing the thing where he's going around the net or he's, playing off of one side, watch what the other guys off the puck or off the ball, if this was basketball, watch what they're doing defensively, right? They are head on a swivel. They are looking around and being like, no, we are not getting beat backdoor and having you score, which is what Vegas is, beyond their chances off on the rush, which they are a very good on the rush team, right? That's one way to try to sort of, eliminate what Vegas wants to do. But those two things, right? On the rush and these sort of backdoor cross ice, where did that guy come from? Can't believe that guy was there to get that pass. Like, it's almost a no look pass type of a deal. Like watch Dallas and the way that they've sort of game planned and gone like, you know what? Like Vegas is probably only going to get six or seven high danger chances, but those chances are going to be mega high danger because of the way that they sort of strategically go about it. But if Dallas can, again, like I said, keep their head on a swivel and stay tight defensively off the ball, off the puck, then I think if they keep doing that, then they have sort of, I don't want to say solved Vegas, but at least kind of know what Vegas does that allows them to have such a high danger chance conversion rate.
There is a question here in the chat. I'm interested to get your guys' take on it. I'm looking over at Pinnacle as well. I see E. Colts asking, stars adjusted series price minus 150. Looking on Pinnacle right now, I see minus 155 there as well. So even that kind of just a little bit slightly better than where we're at with the Pinnacle pricing. Alber, what do you make of the series prices as it's moved throughout, given the results that we've seen? And what are your thoughts on that sitting at minus 150 right now?
I don't know if I'd want to pull the trigger on that simply because I'm already so heavily invested in Dallas. It's like at this point, I don't know how I'd get involved in Vegas series. Like Russell said, right? Like there certainly seems to be some kind of strategical aspect to not having solved Vegas, but like figuring out how they have to play against them, right? Like this is a team that had a playoff series against them last year, and frankly never. They kind of did some of this, but it never really felt like they were in it. So yeah, maybe they've kind of figured out how they need to play against this team to a certain degree. I'm just personally so heavily invested in Dallas already that it doesn't really make sense for me to kind of add more onto that. But that's certainly the only way.
I'm so deep into the stars. I'm full on Herb Brooks, I believe, in Miracle, right? What's the meme that my father Kurt was now famous for? More again. Yeah, is it more or gets again? So like Dallas loses game 1, Dallas series price again. Dallas lost game 2. Dallas series price again. They win game 3. They are still like plus 165 going into the game yesterday. Again. So like, would I tell you like minus 150 is the play? No, because I'm already like underwater here when it comes to a Dallas series price. And by the way, like I would just look to game 5, and that price is basically what I'm Coach Alex. Zach, yeah, what's the current best price available for that next game? I imagine it's probably right around minus 150 for game 5, or at least last time I looked, it was, I think, minus 154 was the best available price. Yeah, I know I kind of sprung that on you, Zach. Yeah, minus 154, right? So, like, would you rather minus 150 or you rather minus 154 in the one game, and then that way you get your money, right? Because I think the implication here, at least is what I'm inferring, is that like Dallas is going to need to win the next game, I think, to make that a valuable bet. And so you might as well just take the money rather than have the valuable bet going into Vegas, which, I mean, you would think Vegas is going to get a home win here, 1 out of the 3. So we might just be headed here to a 7-game series, which if you're sitting there with a 7-game series, I think I talked about this in the preview, right? When the price was minus 130, part of the reason of betting the series price was that if we get to a game 7 with Dallas, like, I don't think Dallas is going to be minus 130 at home for a game 7. And it took all of one game for that price to go from minus 130 at home for game 1 to, even though they lost, the game 2 price was like minus, I think up to as high as minus 170. I think it sort of settled in around minus 155. And here we are now, again, around minus 155, probably going to be the same thing for a game 7, right? So it's like, I'd rather just take this now. I'm happy with sort of gobbling up all of this plus money series pricing so that when and if this goes to game 7 and it's minus 150, minus 160 for Dallas, I'm sitting here already with a plus. And I realize that doesn't help anybody now, but like we talked about this before the series started, so I can sort of, rely on that. And I'm going to be sitting there with all this plus money on Dallas for game 7. And, again, hopefully they win this game. Hopefully they win the next game. But like, writing on the wall kind of feels like a 7-game series, as much as we've said, okay, Dallas is the better team, but like, it's Vegas, man. Like, they don't have to be the better team to win these games, or or at least sort of win one of the next 2. So I rather just take game 5 than take the series price.
Last thing on this one before we go on and get into the games. I know we got 4 ahead of us, so a little bit of a bigger slate as well, and touch on those. But Chad is buzzing here and asking a lot of questions about this stuff, so I want to make sure we do answer as well. While you're watching, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe here to the channel, turn on notifications. Less than 50% of the people watching right now have liked the stream, so please like the stream. But Charles asking, do you guys think DeBoer is just a bad coach? This would obviously be a lot of speculation on this, but I mean, I'll go first as well. I think to get to this point, basically every single year, build the teams that you have in the regular season, play playoff style hockey, go to the playoffs, have some success, go far into those playoff rounds every single year, regardless of where you are, what kind of makeup you have with your team. I think that eliminates the bad coach aspect of it. I think if you want to look at the ultimate goal and the fact that he's fallen short of, like Stanley Cup at that point, then like with some of these teams, then that's okay to say, yeah, he's maybe not the best coach ever, but like the one thing I always look at with some of these guys is it just takes a little bit of luck sometimes, and maybe he just hasn't had it. He's been that good, but he just hasn't quite had that little extra piece, or something has gone wrong along the way. There's been bad bounce here, bad bounce there that's caused that to be the case. I don't necessarily think that falls on him being a bad coach.
Yeah, and I know this is absolutely the time where everybody wants to hear me go 15 minutes on coaching in the NHL, but it feels like maybe more of an October or November thing. In that, I don't really think, all these coaches are never as good as, people sort of think, and they're certainly never as bad, or most of the time they're not as bad as people think. But if I'm right, and Dallas has kind of taught themselves to, as I said, from a defensive play standpoint, kind of let the point guard be the point guard and sort of dribble himself all around the ice, and made that adjustment, like that's way more than most guys are doing in the NHL, right? And it's why that the NHL coaching turnover is what it is. I think we're at 16 coaches that have been fired since was Carberry for Washington. I think he's in the top half now. This is his first season, and I think he's in the top half of like most venerable coaches in the league. And there's a reason, like the quote unquote good coaches like DeBoer have been on all of these different teams, right? It's just there's a shelf life for coaches. That's just what it is, right? And so if you can make that one adjustment in a series and that changes things, that sort of like, turns off the spigot, if you will, for a team's offense in the way that a team wants to play offensively, then like, honestly, that you're doing more than most. And that, a lot of times, given like how tight all this stuff is, that might be just enough to win a series. So yeah, I mean, listen, he's been far with teams that had way, way less talent. And, by the way, like Dallas is like regularly in the Western Conference Finals or the Stanley Cup Finals since, 2020. So yeah, man, like I can't, the organization is certainly an element there, but like he's a veteran coach who's, had a lot of success. Then again, if they lose the next 2 games, I'm going to want him fired immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
And if he does, I wouldn't even have a problem with it, because that's just how it works in the NHL, right? It's just, would be like, yep, okay, cool. Because my guy, Zach, you probably should have led with this. My guy, Dave Hackstall, got fired yesterday from second and probably should have been Jack Adams last year to getting fired. Like, coaching in the NHL, man, like just do not commit to anybody as being like amazing or terrible or this, that, or whatever. It's all mostly just kind of the same.
Well, I mean, look at a Raptors example, right? Matt, we saw it here in Toronto. The guy who won Coach of the Year, Dwayne Casey, was fired, and the next season they won the NBA title. Yeah, like it is what it is.
And NBA coaches, like from a micromanaging and plays and sets and defensive structure and stuff, have more of an effect just by the nature of the sport. Basketball coaches have more of an effect in hands-on than hockey coaches, right? And you still see stuff like that. So yeah.
Alber, any thoughts on the coaching situation there in Dallas?
Yeah, the part of that stands out to me is kind of the adjustment part, right? Like we said, these teams are obviously very familiar. Last year, Vegas kind of took them in 6, but it was 3-0. The series was never really in doubt at that point. Vegas won all 3 games this year in the regular season. Vegas won the first 2 games. But to kind of Russell's point, like maybe DeBoer and his staff have kind of figured out some kind of adjustment they can make to kind of take away some of these high danger chances that Vegas was converting on. And like, to me, being able to adjust like that, like that's the reason that the Rangers didn't win that series against New Jersey last year. They just could not adjust to shit that the Devils were doing. So being able to kind of adjust to some of that, like to me, that signals a pretty good coach, actually. But yeah, no, I definitely don't think I certainly don't think coaches are worthless, but I do think like being able to adjust, especially in a series like this, especially when you're kind of already outplaying a team, rather than go, hey, we're winning every game, we're winning all the expected goals, we're doing things right, just stay with it the whole time. I think after losing, what would that be? 3, 5, 9 out of 11 to Vegas or something, they went, hey, like maybe we should try doing something differently. To me, that's a good coach. So.
Right. Yeah, and honestly, like having your team, obviously coaching in hockey especially is part of the buy-in and the motivation and stuff, and like being down 3-0 and having them sort of battle to get back into that series, even though they were kind of just running out of gas last year against Vegas. That's really impressive. 2, you've got a bunch of really young guys on that Dallas team that are making an impact. And I think, listen, you could tell me that Stankoven and Johnston are like the next big thing in the NHL, or they have really good coaches that have gotten those guys like up to speed faster than maybe most teams, coaches would, right? So like the development of young players, I think, is a thing for a coaching staff too, right? And you look on the benches, and both those benches have like a pretty loaded roster of like assistant coaches that have been, high level head coaches as well. And then the third thing is, and this goes for both teams, like if you don't take many penalties, like I accredit that to the coaching as well, right? Like if you're a team wide and you don't take stupid penalties, and you don't take, penalties, period, then that's being coached, right? And whether that's sort of like, in an individual way or in a macro way of like, hey, it's really important that we don't give up power plays. And every coach is going to say that necessarily, but like, does your team actually take that onto the ice with them and not, give up power plays, right? Or take penalties. So like, though, if he's doing those 3 things beyond even just the adjustment that we think may or may not be happening in this series, like, man, that's, if you have a coach having that sort of those 4 things on your track record, like that's a really good start.
Yeah. Alber, before we move on, any final thoughts here on the coaching stuff?
Yeah, I think the only thing to kind of the roster point is like obviously Dallas has a really good roster, but the top of their team certainly is not what some of these other teams have, right? Like in
Yep.
Edmonton, like they don't have McDavid and Draisaitl, they don't have McKinnon and Ranton, and they don't have Artemi Panarin. Like obviously Heiskanen's a superstar, and like Hintz is really good, Robertson's really good. They got some good young players, but I would certainly not look at them and say they have like the most talented roster in the league. I do tend to like DeBoer as a coach.
Jamie Benn out here without the face mask or the half shield as one of a handful of guys that are still playing from when that was made mandatory. If anybody in the chat wants to come up with the list of the guys who are allowed to go around skating without a face shield on. That occurred to me last night where I'm like, how many guys are still, in the league that don't have to wear the face shield because that rule, is grandfathered in after they started playing?
I can only think of three: Matt Martin
You got three?
and Ryan Reeves.
Yeah.
Okay. I think does
think
Corey Perry have a shield? He would be old enough, but he does play with the shield, right?
No, he plays with it. And remember, Ryan Getzlaf put one on later on in his career at the end there.
Right.
Ryan O'Reilly doesn't wear one.
Right.
That's another guy.
Point. Yeah.
I don't know. If there are other ones, send them in the chat. That's interesting. Right now, I can't think of too many off the top of my head, but there you go. Jordy Ben was as well, but then now he's over in European hockey, and I think they made him put one on. So unfortunate for him. As for coaching, and we're talking about sometimes needing a change, just a fresh face in there, a fresh face in the locker room, a new voice to hear from. There's a team here tonight playing that could maybe use one because those jokers have kept this bum around for a while. And that would be the head coach of the Toronto
Jim
Maple Leafs.
Montgomery's not that bad.
As Sheldon Keefe and the Leafs head out to Boston here for Game 5 and what I hope is the final nail in the coffin of this group as for the pathetic, embarrassing efforts we've seen out of them over the last little while. I would like it to come to an end, but we see the Leafs plus 142 here tonight. The Bruins minus 155. See a bunch of different totals right now, but you see 5.5s, the over on those at kind of minus 120 range. We see some 6s in there, but those are kind of in the plus money at the over 6 on that. Russell, what are your thoughts on this game? The price that we're seeing right now. Do you have any interest in this at all?
I actually do. And I hate to say it, Zach, and listen, you've said it, so I don't, it's not that I'm telling you anything you don't know. And honestly, if you're ever doing the thing where you're like, how could we have ever seen this coming? I just happen to notice in the intro to the show every day is a rant from Zach talking about pathetic efforts and this, that, about, spoiler alert, he's talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs in that rant. And it's just like, we start every show with you ranting from the regular season about this team. And it's like, how could we have ever seen this coming with the Toronto Maple Leafs? And it's like, I don't know, man. Our guys got a rant here at the start of every show that we do. Like, of course, this is kind of how it was going to go. And like, I feel like an idiot because I was on Toronto to start the series as well. But even beyond the sort of negligible thing about like, are they tough enough? Do they have the fight and like this, that, or whatever? And then you get into sort of, a secondary thing of like, they're scrapping with each other on the bench, and that's not how they normally interact with each other. So now this is a sign of like, panic beyond panic. Fundamentally, we're looking at, and I don't want to start with Mitch Marner here, so I'm not going to, but like, are we positive Austin Matthews is going to play? Are we positive that Austin Matthews is 100%? Right? Because I watch him in those first two periods, because again, as somebody who was hoping that the Leafs would win, in part for the group here, I'm like, okay, Austin, like, time for you to do something, right? Like, time for you to be the 69 goal scorer this season. Like,
the guy who makes $13.5 million.
Yeah, and he did that in Game 2, and so it was like, there he is. That's the breakout moment, and you're sort of watching, and when you're watching and waiting for that, and you're watching him maybe closer than I would normally. And you just go also,
like, man, by the way, here, Matt, I know you're talking about it right now.
Yeah. Give it to me.
Matthews is the first player on the ice for the Leafs morning skate.
Okay.
So it doesn't mean confirmed, but I know you're talking about him right now. That's what I just got come through.
Yeah, I was definitely curious, because where I'm going with this is that I'm watching him play, and even while he's on the ice, it doesn't look great. right? Because it doesn't look great in the case of Mitch Marner, which just kind of doesn't look great. And what's his excuse? I know, people tell you there's an ankle or something, whatever, right? We got broken leg guys playing in the NHL right now, right? So it's like, okay, he might play tonight, but are we getting like the full Austin Matthews experience, which is absolutely going to be needed if Toronto is going to win this game. Now, Nylander comes out, he comes back in that game and he's trying his hardest, but like you can tell he's not in quote unquote mid-season form, right? He's like kind of, losing edges, this, that, or whatever. So my point in all of this is like the number is getting what you would think may be out of hand because Boston's minus 165 and they were no higher than at any point minus 150 in game 1 and game 2. But like a lot has happened since game 1 and game 2. So the injury stuff, okay, we have to dock the Maple Leafs power rating from that perspective. And then just the situation that they're in. And by the way, the bloodthirsty nature of Boston in an elimination game versus a game 1 or game 2 situation. So like there's a lot of sort of mathematical elements here from all of this stuff that makes not just minus 165 the correct price, but also probably somewhat valuable, right? Because minus 165 sort of translates to around 63% from an implied win probability. And I think we're all kind of sitting here going like, I think it's a little higher than that. That the Leafs are golfing by tomorrow. So, minus 165, while not certainly a price that was, it's a price that was sort of too high a week ago, based on everything that we've seen, whether it's sort of conjecture or the actual literal, Austin Matthews injury and some of this other stuff. I think minus 165 is a decent enough price here to bet. And listen, if he ends up playing in this game, and that sort of means, okay, well, we got to go back to game 1 and game 2 prices, minus 150, because this minus 165 feels like a number in between full health, which would have been those game 1 and game 2 prices at minus 150. And if he just was flat out, I'm sorry, like it's Austin Matthews. You have to adjust him 5, 6, 7% from the Toronto Maple Leafs power rating and applied win probability. So like if he's out, then the number's going up to minus 180, minus 190. Who knows how far it might actually go?
Yeah.
So, when you say he's skating, okay, if we're going to infer that means he's going to give it a go tonight and the market sees that and some intrepid bettors out there are willing to put their money on the Maple Leafs, or if it just moves on air, getting a price with better than minus 165 on Boston, absolutely, like totally fine with that, because I just don't believe that Austin Matthews is going to be ready to go full steam playoff version, which by the way, like regular season Austin Matthews, regular season Toronto Maple Leafs is a lot different than playoff Austin Matthews and playoff Toronto Maple Leafs. So, there's as much as we can take from the regular season. And by the way, just like, and I'll sort of cede the floor to you guys for the rest of this, like, everybody talks about the Toronto Maple Leafs as this, like, well, they're a regular season team, like can't get it done in the playoffs. And it's like, I'm sorry, where are all the division banners and President's Trophy banners from the regular season for this Toronto team? Because if you're going to tell me that they're a regular season team because the goal scoring statistics are all great or whatever, like I'm going to need my regular season teams to be a lot better in the regular season. I'm going to need them to not be in third place almost every year. I'm going to need them to be flirting with the President's Trophy, right? Like we all kind of slander Alber's Rangers because it's like, well, yeah, they won the President's Trophy. Like they weren't the Bruins who like took off on everybody last year. And like the expected goal stuff and the metrics and all that kind of thing. It's like, throw down one division title, Toronto, before we even get to call you a regular season team. That's all I ask, right? Throw some sort of half-ass banner up into the rafters before we start saying, "Oh, this is a great regular season team." I cheered for a regular season team, the Vancouver Canucks, who had regularly President's Trophy division titles, et cetera, and didn't get it done in the playoffs. Had one obviously Stanley Cup finals run. I know what good regular season team looks like. And to be just third place all the time, or like maybe, well, we got second in the division, we get to have a home series. Like you're not even a good regular season team relative to everybody else, right? We only call them a good regular season team because they're so piss poor in the playoffs. So it's just like, yeah. Long story short, they're going out tonight, blow it up, start over, build it around Austin. We can cheer for 70 goal seasons. It'd be great. Throw that. That's the banner. Fundamentally, you get 70 goals. They throw that banner up into the rafters, and everybody gets to pat each other on the back.
while you're talking there, we haven't locked it in yet, but we're talking about the price changing with the Matthews news there. Looks like money's come in on the Leafs at this point. So we're seeing even minus 142 on Boston's. We hadn't locked that in yet.
It's
if
happening.
you're sitting watching this, waiting with us, then you're
Again.
going to see that number jumping across your screen as well. Alber, I'm sure you're seeing this money come in. You're seeing the price move. What are your thoughts on the adjustment that's being made right now and interest level based on the news that's come out?
So I'm going to preface this all with I don't think I'm playing either side in this. I think if you like Toronto here, I'd almost look at the series price to a lot of what Russell was saying, right? Like Matthews, unknown. Nylander doesn't look right. I think if the Leafs are going to win tonight, you're probably seeing Matthews back to full health. I think you're probably seeing Nylander start to look a little better. And at that point, if that's true, I'm looking at maybe a Leafs plus 1.5 games, like maybe even a little bit on the Leafs series, kind of thinking like, okay, if they are able to get through this, it probably gets a little bit better for them game by game here. I'm on Boston pre-series. I'm not going to be playing that, but I think that's certainly a way to look. If you're Boston, you want to get this done tonight. Again, you don't want to let Nylander get more games under him and start to look a little more comfortable. You don't want Matthews back to full health. You don't even want them to have the semblance of maybe being able to find something. Like, you want to end this right now. I just can't do it.
I mean, I got to throw my body in front of the concept of the Leafs winning this series. And again, I have Leafs series tickets. Like they're, but to me, they're a sunk cost because the reality is like, yes, all of that's true. Albert's 100% right. And something that like, I would be absolutely into the concept of uncertainty and these guys like finding it and, and being healthy and getting this big number for them to win the series, because it's not like you're asking for some sort of 50-50 type thing. Like what's the series price right now? Like 10-1.
I think the point is I'd rather take, it's like plus 800.
Yeah.
Against the ground. Like I think I'd rather have that than bet the Leafs plus 120 tonight.
No. Oh, listen. I mean, now that we're down in minus 140 town, like again, right? I'm back to her Brooksing this thing. My point is like, okay, so let's say they're fully healthy. Does that just make everything else go away for the Leafs? Because I think strategically there's just something missing, right? Like they're not even generating anything, and I don't know, they're not getting into the zone, right? Like this isn't. I don't think their issues are health issues. The health issues certainly aren't helping. But like, we don't even know what the goaltender is necessarily going to be. I think at this point, right, Zach? Like, are they going back to Samsonov or is it Wall? Like, the fact that we're asking this, like, seems problematic, right? Like, seems like yet another issue, right? There's just so many issues that are beyond the health thing that, like, if the Leafs want to just say, "Oh man, we weren't healthy for that series," and we're gonna hashtag run it back again. Like I'm honestly going to be on like health check for Zach this offseason because I think Zach knows that this isn't just a health situation.
Yeah. As far as like the goaltending goes, I have no confirmation. It looked like it might be Wall. It looked like it might be him based on practice yesterday. We're seeing articles and stuff about him, but I don't even have any like there's no confirmation. This meathead there in Toronto as well thinks he's playing the greatest games of all time by going into the media. Oh, I don't know who's gonna go. Shut up. Like it doesn't fucking matter. These guys are both average. Just put whoever you want out there. You're gonna lose the game anyways. I can't do it. It's gonna drive me insane. Minus 140 now we see here as well, Alber.
Yeah, it's starting to get down there. I mean, hey, like we're finally getting into the real reason that Moretto isn't on the show. I mean, he's already declared the series over, I'm pretty sure. But no, like if you like Toronto, how do you not go at the series price at this point, right? Like that's a big if, obviously. But if you're looking at Toronto, rather than just taking like a plus 125 here.
I mean, if you fucking hate your mental well-being and money, then yeah, bet on the series price. I understand from an actual number perspective. I get it.
Because both are going to lose tonight.
Yeah, right.
So it's like, I'd rather have an plus 800 ticket lose tonight than a plus 120 ticket lose tonight. Yeah. Sure, but like this cannot be this cannot be the game one price. This cannot be the same price as game one. We've seen too much. We've come too far. It cannot. And that's fundamentally where we're at. We are kind of, with minus 140, we are back to game one, where like I think everybody, even with Nylander out, felt a lot better about the Maple Leafs chances. But like through 5 games, and by the way, it's worth mentioning that like it's not like the ice has been particularly slanted either, right? This is 37-26 even strength high danger chances in favor of Toronto. The expected goal share slightly in favor of Toronto. Toronto 6. Yeah. The problem is that Toronto 6 of 37 in converting those high danger chances at even strength. That's a pretty good number. And Boston's 3 for 26, which is not a particularly great number, right? It's like, it's not like Boston says, oh man, they're hitting at 20% and like the power play is cooking. It's like, yeah, the power play is doing, pretty well. But like, it's not like Boston's got all these crazy outlier numbers. And by the way, they have a goaltender that, like, if you believe in anything that has to do with sort of matchups and being in another team's head, like one team doesn't know who their goaltender is or won't tell us because as if it really matters between Samsonov and Wall at this point. And then the other team's got like, yeah, we have the Vezina winner who's just going to sit out because our other guy who had the same, essentially the same exact numbers as our Vezina winner because he just owns the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like what else do we have to see? And again, like if the price is minus 200, we could be having a different conversation, but it's the same as game one. Like, again, Toronto might win tonight. I think we'd all be extremely surprised if that was the case. And I bet on him in game two after game one, which everybody was like, that's the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Right. So like, I'm not averse to it. It's just, we watched 4 games of this. And you're going to tell me that the price has to be the same as game one. I can't get there.
So the reason I think it can be is because you have Nylander back. I think that it is adjusting for the fact that the Bruins are just outplaying the Leafs. Leafs are kind of stumped, but you get an elite player back. So I do think the price is actually like, I tend to think it's a little more fair. I have no interest in that.
I'm saying that like getting Nylander back is something. It's outweighed by all of the things that have transpired here in the last 4 games. Like if it tips the scales essentially, right? Like, yeah, you're putting a little on the Leafs side for having Nylander back, who by the way, like is back, but like, is he 100%? Yeah, like he's there, which is great. But is he like a dominant figure out there? Because to move a price, like I need to rely on you being a dominant figure. And if the other thing is like, well, Austin Matthews is like maybe because he's, by the way, it's not just he was sick yesterday. It's like he's been sick for, I guess, a week now, right? Because the excuses were game 3 wasn't feeling great. And then game 4 literally can't come back into the game in the third period and like didn't practice yesterday. So it's just like, if the trade-off is like Nylander back at like whatever percent, but Austin Matthews is now like sub 100%, like, I can't have that be the price. And then we talk obviously about the goaltending and honestly just Boston being, kind of just mentally in their heads and like, Anyway, long story short, minus 140. Give me.
But again, that's why it's me. If I want Boston, I'm playing it tonight. If I want Toronto, I'm looking for a series plus 1.5 or a series outright.
Mm-hmm. I'd feel a lot better about that too if Toronto hadn't lost 6 straight home games in the playoffs. Like, that's the other thing. It's like, well, if we just get them back to our place, it's like, and then what? Like, well, we lose there a lot.
Just a FYI, Matthews left the skate before anybody else came on. So there's that.
Absolutely sick.
And then Joseph Wall is projects to be the starter for tonight. So there's your Leafs information as well.
Well, I project to be betting the bleep out of this game right now. So
yeah,
that's my projection.
It's back on the move too.
Yeah, 146.
Yeah, it's moving. Okay, so there you go. We locked in here. We lock in as our first bet of the day. Boston minus 140. If you're watching live, you would have watched that number move right across the screen. Kind of just final thing that I want to say about this game myself, as for me at this point, as for betting, I personally just for the most part remove myself from this because watching this is too much of like knowing this stupid team, they're going to go to 7. You know what I mean? Like, they're gonna drag this out. They basically have been declared dead after game 4 there, and then these idiots are going to waste all of our time and make all these people in the city have some type of hope to where we can have the conversation in the summer about like run it back, and then we have that stupid fucking conversation again, and then I'm gonna have to have Matt put me in a straitjacket and look after me for a little bit until the conversation ends. But
I'll make up a cot for you, buddy. You're
right.
good.
Thank you.
Rubber up the
Thank
room.
you. It's just like I think Boston finishes this. I think they should finish this, and then that's it. But for me, watching this team and the torture that it puts me through, it's like, why would they not go to 7? Why would they not have a lead in the third period? Why would they not blow it? And then we get to have even worse pain and torture and suffering for the next couple of months. So
I got to tell you
where I'm at on it.
It's a massive indictment of the Boston Bruins if this does go 7. Like a massive indictment. Like if this goes 7, like, it's just bags of money on the Florida Panthers in the next round.
Yeah.
Just
sacks. And Zach, you kind of touched on it there, right? Like I do think a lot of people maybe are expecting the Leafs kind of just roll over and die tonight. Teams don't really roll over and die when they're facing elimination. Like even just obviously small sample.
Well, you've never seen this round before, brother.
But look,
I was gonna say,
they down 3-1 to Boston, and they almost won. They should have won Game 7. But like, I mean, the Lightning had every reason to roll over. They win a game. They were very much in last night's game. Obviously, the score definitely not indicative of kind of how that game played out. 2 overturned goals.
Yeah.
Like the Islanders down 3-0. That series is dead. They came out and win. The Capitals 3-0. That series is dead. They played their best game of the series. Like, so I think any of this, the Leafs are just going to roll over and die. Like, I don't think that's true. I do think there's a solid chance they win this game. And if you get it back home, like, I do think there's a solid chance this ends up going 7. But
I just, and
again,
I don't
not enough to justify that.
No, and I don't want to, and like, I hate to say this to Zach, but it's like, but Zach knows because he's been seeing this. Like, that applies to like just about everybody other than this group. Like, of teams that like make the playoffs, for example, right? Like, I'm not saying, well, the San Jose Sharks would also, like, that obviously doesn't apply. But like, okay, Islanders, like, yeah, like I felt like the Islanders were going to win a game at home in that series. Like, thought it was a little bit more likely that it was Game 3. I bet on them in Game 4. It was delighted that was the case. Washington, as we mentioned, like, played the Rangers pretty tight. Obviously literally giving them a goal to start that Game 4 was probably their death knell, but like at least that was at home. That wasn't in Boston. And there was one more example there. Oh, in Tampa Bay. Like, honestly, if you're listening to this and you're watching this as a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, like, you are appalled that the sort of championship pedigree and all of the stuff that the Tampa Bay Lightning core has gone through over the last 5 years would be put in the same sentence as an expectation for the Toronto Maple Leafs, to fight in the same way that Lightning team would be expected to do with that coach, right?
Yeah. Like
Cooper, Hedman, Stamkos, I guess we'll throw in Kucherov, though, his effort level is questionable from time to time, because his talent certainly isn't. But like that group versus like this group, like I can't apples to apples that, right? It's just, again, and listen, it's hockey, man. Like, maybe the Leafs win tonight. If it was some sort of guarantee, it'd be like minus 8,000, and it's not. But it's just like, what are you going to feel less dumb about after the game, right? You're again, listen, I'm not applying Alber because he's talking about the series price, which again is like very theoretical at this point. But like, what are you going to feel better about? Having the Bruins minus 145 or having the Leafs, plus 125 in this?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I get Alber's point on the series price. I was more making a joke, but yeah. There you go. There's our first game of the night here tonight. Let's keep it moving. Carolina Hurricanes. Yeah, hosting the New York Islanders here. The Hurricanes minus 238. The Islanders plus 215. Total of 5.5 right across the board. Alber, what are your thoughts on this game? Side, total, where the pricing's at, and are you going to be jumping into this one?
I don't think I can get disgusting. I'll leave that up for the disgusting brother over here. It'd certainly be Isles or nothing here. Like, I think you could make a really good argument that the Isles should be at the very least tied in this series, if not potentially up 3-1. Like, Game 1, they played really well. That was probably close to a coin flip-ish game.
Mm-hmm.
Game 2, yeah, they got dominated, but they were up 3-0 so quickly that they were always going to get caved in the rest of that game. So it's like, you can't really entirely throw it out the window, but I take all those kind of metrics from Game 2 with a big grain of salt. And then the last 2, yeah, they probably deserve to split those. So it's like, this series is certainly kind of closer than the 3-0, I guess now 3-1 that it is. I just don't think I can do it. hopefully for the Rangers' sake, the Isles take this to triple overtime win, just keep the series going as long as humanly possible.
Right. And there it is.
But
There's the tinge.
yeah, we don't need to get into a Rangers Canes series preview, which is
No,
going to
it's
7
time for
no matter
that.
what happens.
Oh, well.
I just can't get involved here.
Russell, are you gonna get involved?
No, because as you know from the series preview, I was fighting off just Islanders this and Islanders that, and our good friend Lieboff wearing and then giving us a history lesson on a dragon, Dewey the Dragon or whatever his name was. I was sitting there going, having bet on the Islanders in Game 4, going, I can't believe I gave the Islanders this much credit. And Alber's not wrong. Like a couple of bounces here and there. I mean, guess what? A lot of these series, a couple of bounces here and there could be tied to 2. Like, it's hockey, right? So, like, I get that. But going back to the series preview, I talked about having -1.5. That was my best bet for this series. So, like, when we're going to fade that all of a sudden, like, there's a world, I suppose, in which the Islanders win tonight and the Canes then win back in New York and I win theoretically both. But, like, no, I'm just going to sit back, and I got 2 shots for the Canes to finish this series off, cash my -1.5 ticket. And, I know it's Tuesday. I know it's, the disgusting brothers, et cetera, but, like, that's one thing, the whole disgusting element is really a regular season thing, right? Where it's like catching teams when they're not really paying attention. And like, sometimes the Sharks can win a hockey game. Sometimes the Blackhawks can win a hockey game. There's kind of nothing, sadly, there's nothing all that disgusting about the playoffs. And, when you feel like you're on the right side, in this case, the Hurricanes by a decent sized margin, and I have 2 shots to win a bet. That is our, by the way, better price than just the money line tonight, right? -1.5 was around -150 before the series started. And now we're looking at like what, -230 or whatever for this game.
Yeah.
I'm not adding to it. Like, I'm not like, oh, let's throw some more, coal into the fire on the Hurricanes. Like, betting context matters, right? And we, I talked about it on this podcast. So, I can rightly claim, like, everybody was told to get your Hurricanes -1.5 tickets, and you should be sitting there pretty pleased with that, regardless of what happens in the next 2 games. Like, you made a good bet. So that's where I'm at.
Good luck to our friend Michael Lieboff there tonight. Wishing him the best.
He got his 1 game. He's fine.
All right. Third game of the night here. The Winnipeg Jets playing host to the Colorado Avalanche. Winnipeg +106. The Avs -115. And a total of 6.5 right across the board. Russell, thoughts on this one, where we see the Jets looking to fight off elimination tonight?
Yeah. I mean, I had the Jets before the series. First game, it's like, okay, that was weird. 7-6, right? Like, glad that we got out of there. But the sort of predictive element was like, okay, are anybody going to trust the Avs goaltending? And before the series, the answer was no. And through Game 1, where I believe he was like -4 goals saved above expectation, it was like, okay, we're right. Avs goaltender stinks. What we didn't know was that the presumed Vezina trophy winner, was also going to stink. Not just for that game, but for the rest of the games going forward, essentially, outside of a couple of good periods. And so, you look at the metrics, 13.11 to 8.2 in expected goals for at even strength, and the Avs up 49-38 in high danger chances at even strength. Like, the Avs are the better team. Hate to admit that. And so the thing is, like, okay, do we just sort of consider a bet on the Jets before the series a sunk cost? Which honestly, I was pretty there, like, after Game 2. Just why I didn't bet the Jets in either of the games in Colorado, because I was just like, why would I pour sort of good money after bad? This isn't the same scenario as kind of like backing in with Tampa Bay and betting them in Game 3, betting them in Game 4. Same thing with the Islanders, where it's like these 2 teams are competitive with each other, even if one team won the first 2 games. This one wasn't even they won the first 2 games. It was a split coming out of Winnipeg. And it was just like, I'm going to need to see more out of A, Hellebuck, and B, the Jets before I'm looking to back the Jets. And I actually played pretty well in that Game 3, but I just couldn't pull the trigger in Game 4. And so, like, at some point you have to look within and just be like, okay, like, what does that mean for me? And the answer for me is that, like, it's not turning around for the Jets. It's just not. Like, and I don't know that means that whether they win or they lose tonight, but if we're talking about Colorado -115, I don't really have to spend like all that much on a Colorado bet to try to just kind of get out of here with a split, essentially, from a betting perspective on this series. Yeah, I'm probably just gonna have to, grab a decent price here with the Colorado Avalanche and just kind of go like, yeah, all right, 5-game series. I was wrong from before the series started in thinking crazily thinking that the Jets would have the advantage in goal, and crazily thinking that their deep roster of forwards was going to be able to, top Colorado's, relatively top heavy, group. Now you got Nikushkin out here scoring goals, hand over fist. And so it's like, yeah, I don't know that we saw that coming necessarily, but you know what? You're getting Makar, you're getting McKinnon, and you're getting like 6 goals from Nikushkin and goaltending that's honestly better than Hellebuck has been, which is just wild to say. And listen, I'll probably go back into the next series and be like, don't trust Georgiev, like gonna take whomever Colorado plays, and then probably just look like a dope when those guys are just so dominant, and for whatever reason, the other team's goaltender absolutely stinks. So, yeah, man, at this price, it's an absolute, open up the emergency exit and just get your parachute on and jump off the Jets and take the Avs.
There you go. Avs -115 for tonight. Another bet locked in here. Alber, what are your thoughts on this game? And are you going to be betting on this one?
Yeah, I was also on the Jets pre-series. I mean, the Avs are just dominating them, right? Like, I'm pretty sure we could have all kind of seen like the play benefiting the Avs. None of us saw Georgiev outplaying Hellebuck in 3 or 4 games, especially to this degree. If that's going to continue, the Jets obviously have absolutely zero chance whatsoever. I can't do it. I backed the Jets in game 4. I thought I was getting a decent price. The problem is they're just playing like dog shit, and the Avs are just completely dominating them. I agree, it's Avs or nothing. I'm not interested in it.
All right, there you go. Final game of the night here. We'll take a look at the Nashville Predators and the Vancouver Canucks. Vancouver -117, the Preds +106, total of 5.5 right across the board. Alber, thoughts on this game, thoughts on the price, and are you betting on this one?
So I'm not betting on this one. I'm close to it. I kind of want to. I'm so heavy in the Canucks at this point. Like what Russell said about the Stars is me and the Canucks at this point, honestly. And I was on this kind of in game 2 when we saw a very similar price with Casey to Smith. I could be talked into it. Like I said, I'm just so heavy in the Canucks already. It's certainly Canucks or nothing. Like you're not. What are you taking? Nashville +100? Like they're not winning this game over 50% of the time. So it's certainly Canucks or nothing. But like I said, I'm just so heavy on them already that I kind of want to just let this play out and hopefully they close it out.
Okay, so we'll let you let that one play out. Russell, are you going to let this one play out tonight?
Yes. Yes, I am. Okay, so, and I know, Zach, you probably have the clip lined up. If you want to play it, you can go ahead. No, I'm just kidding. There's no clip. But last week, the last time we talked about the series, it was halcyon times, man. It was great. We were up 1-0. Thatcher Demko was outstanding. It was great. 4 hours later, Demko is basically out for eternity. Casey DeSmith is in. Wait, what's going on? We're dealing with Casey DeSmith, and now it's like, man, we're going to be lucky to just win this series, a series that, whether it was game 1 or game 2, and honestly, I think through 4 games, if Demko is in, I think the Canucks play a little bit differently, and I think the Canucks are pretty notably the better team. And the Canucks are on their 3rd goaltender at this point. We got Latvian World Hockey Championship hero Arturs Shilovs in the mix. And how has that affected the price? Well, as Alber mentioned, right, we're down to what, like -120. Like I think there was even some like -115s that were like lurking in the last couple of days. Yeah, I think -117 at Pinnacle. Yeah, there you go. And yeah, like not great performances, but like kind of classic road performances. And I think everybody got a little bit too, spicy after game 3. Because when the Canucks went up 2-0 in that game, the shots were like 9-6. It was a very like low event game, right? And they converted the 2 power play goals, etc. And so, yeah, then Nashville gets a bunch of shots. Nothing really crazy when it came to like high danger scoring chances. I think they had 7 in game 3. So it's like everybody, oh man, like look at the shot differential. Like, oh, they almost had the fewest shots like ever. And then the same thing sort of happens in game 4, but it's a little bit different, right? Because Nashville has the lead, and we were expecting like any team, the Canucks to press late in that game. And it was like, Man, they're not really doing anything. And I got to tell you, like, I was checked out, man. I'm on my phone. I'm looking up tee times. I'm like, doing some other stuff. And then it's like, okay, we're going to pull the goalie here. And it's like, all right, let's just do the stupid empty net thing and just pull a bullet in. And it's goal. And then it's post. And then it's goal. And then a minute in, it's goal. And you're just sitting there going like, 20 minutes ago, I was just out on this game. I'm like, all right, I guess it's best of 3 back in Vancouver. But a week ago, or no, it's a week and a half ago, because before the series started, I said Canucks minus 2.5. You'll remember that, Zach. And it sounded like, hubris. Like the Canucks fans they've lost their mind. They've gone crazy. And even though basically everything that could possibly go wrong from a health perspective, being into your third goaltender, has gone wrong for the Canucks, here we are, Zach, 3-1 at home with a chance to close out a plus 285 minus 1.5 bet on the Canucks. So as much as I look at this price at minus 117 and seeing that the game one price is minus 145, and obviously that's a pretty significant difference between, that's what, 6% implied win probability difference from Demko down to Shelovs, and the Canucks, as Rick Tocchet said yesterday, feeling pretty confident that playing a kind of a bad game in game 4, because by the way, like you kind of expect it, like, hey, we're up 2-1, like worst case we get out of here with a split. By the way, I wrote about just taking the Canucks on the series after game 2 because I thought the Canucks would get a split and that they would have, if they got a split, obviously that's a really good bet going forward. And here we are. They go and they end up getting the second game. And now it's like, okay, blood in the water. We didn't even play a great game in game 4. Now we're back home. And by the way, the Predators haven't exactly been generating a ton of offense. Like, yes, they scored a few. And listen, we can talk about whether Demko would have made the saves in these games that the DeSmith and Shelovs have allowed in. Those are kind of like small goalie goals, if you know what I mean, right? Whereas Demko is obviously a much larger fellow. It's not like Nashville for the better of the play. It's not like they're generating a ton of chances. 7 high dangers in game 3, 5 high danger chances at even strength in game 4. I think the Canucks come out and they play a really good game. The sort of classic low event, protect the goaltender game that they played down the stretch when DeSmith was in net for Demko. I think they win this game. We cash our mid-season or mid-series bets. We cash our minus 2.5. If you don't have anything, I think there's still some value here at minus 117 on the Canucks. So play it how you want to play it, but you were warned before the series started. Somewhat accidentally we got there. Let's see how it goes.
Okay, there you go. That'll do it for tonight's games, our previews, our best bets, breakdowns there. Taking a look at what we do have for tonight's games, we have 2 best bets. You can find them over in the BetStamp app in the Find Better section as Edgework HQ. Seeing fake Moretto in the chat. Take a look at the best bets that we've got for tonight. 2 ahead of us. Bruins money line minus 140 and the Avalanche money line minus 115. Those are our 2 best bets ahead of tonight's game. So we appreciate everyone who tuned in. Appreciate all the support throughout the first round here and throughout all of the regular season. Look to continue that going as we get to some series previews as we get to round 2. Russell, you got something for us?
I do. Real quickly.
Like the hand raise.
I didn't want to. Zach was vibing on this thing, and I hate to, but I think it needs to be mentioned. What's a parlay? What's a 4 elimination parlay tonight? What's the mega elimination parlay?
One sec. Give me.
I
you
think
want to fill time while I can click around quickly for it?
Well, because if there's a 4 elimination parlay, that means
roughly 7-1.
There's literally no hockey on Thursday,
right?
Which means
right.
we get to touch base with our families. Maybe catch up on a couple of PVR episodes.
Maybe
avoid
golf
divorce.
at night.
Maybe there's. Listen, the sun's out there for a while, right? Like that's got Twilight written all over it. Maybe have a nice go out for dinner. Maybe we pay, Alber? Maybe we pay for the dinner with a small bet on the four teams to eliminate.
Roughly 7-1.
Okay, yeah.
It depends where you're finding better prices and stuff, but
I just went to BetStamp and grabbed all the best price, all Pinnacle prices there. Obviously, so our friend of the show. We got plus 721. Maybe that's how you want to play this tonight.
There you go. $20 on that. 140. You take the wife out for a nice, mid-level dinner.
It also means there'll be very little
Mid-level.
hockey coming up, so you'll have the time to do it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Thursday
there you go.
night. Get yourself
Right.
a little reservation at the place around the corner, make a night of it.
All right. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in here today. We appreciate it. Maybe that's the way you want to take your approach to tonight's games. Thank you. We'll see everyone back here. Well, thank you guys for hopping in here as well, Alber, for filling in. We'll see everyone in the chat back here tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. Enjoy the games tonight and good luck in your bets.